Hi guys, it's me, Annie, the girl who shows up about once a year to talk about Amberlynn Reid because Amber does something that gets me going so hot that I can't be quiet anymore and I have to talk about it. And here we are, we're at that point. I think anybody who's in the Amberverse right now is also at that point because shit has truly hit the fan. And the counter apparently, and the washcloths. So I'm gonna try to be as organized and concise about this as possible. I don't have a ton of time to film this. I have to get to work soon. And I don't have a lot of time for editing, so I'm gonna try to do this in a way that I don't have a lot of editing to do. So just bear with me. If I ramble, I'm sorry. But I do think that this video is worth watching because it is coming from a lot of insight from somebody who has been very vocal about having BPD, borderline personality disorder, and has also been very vocal about going through DBT, or as Amber likes to call it, DBT therapy, which makes no sense because the T in DBT stands for therapy. It's dialectical behavioral therapy. But whatever, we're gonna move on from that. I want to do a quick thing before I go on about this. The point about this video is me to kind of analyze everything that's happening from the lens of someone who has borderline personality disorder, and why Amber is completely going about everything in the wrong way, and why it's almost laughable. And it's almost laughable, but you don't quite get to the humor because you're so angry about it that you can't quite laugh about it. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this situation. So let's talk about it. So to give just a brief rundown, a reminder of sort of my experience, and I do want to preface this and say that, yes, I have borderline personality disorder. I was diagnosed with it almost 10 years ago. And that's also when I went through the program. That does not make me the expert of DBT at all. My experience with it does not mean that everyone's experience with it is the same. And also, my DBT program that I went through, again, was over 10 years ago. There are certainly things about it that could be different now, or I could be misremembering things. So I'm sorry if anything that I say isn't correct, but I'm going to try to be as informative as I can. And I do really want to get in the meat and potatoes about Amber, but I do think it's important to start by giving just a little bit of a rundown of my experience with this, just for a baseline understanding. So hang on tight, guys. I'm sorry if I talk too much, but I promise everything has a point of why I'm talking about this. So I had my own crash out about 10 years ago. I was like in my early 20s. I had just gotten out of a relationship. There was a lot of things going on. And I had my own little meltdown. At this point I had already done inpatient care before, so I was familiar with it. I knew how it had helped me in the past, and I was self-aware enough to recognize similar self-destructing patterns that were happening within me. And I knew that I was not capable of fixing them myself. And so I made the decision that made the most sense to me at the time to put myself in inpatient care again. Through that process, you're working with therapists, you're doing all these different things, doing different tests, and they were like, hey, we don't know if you've ever heard of this thing called borderline personality disorder, BPD, but we think you might have it. And they had like pamphlets on it and workbooks and things like that, obviously. And so I spent kind of the rest of my time there learning about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I might have this. This might explain everything wrong with me. This might explain why I'm psychotic. Not really, but at the time, that's how I was feeling. So I was not officially diagnosed with BPD there. They just said, we think that you might have this. we're going to send you, when they released me to the wild, they set you up with meetings and therapists and stuff like that to make sure that you're going to succeed leaving there. And they set me up with a DBT, not a DBT, well, yeah, DBT specialist, but a BPD specialist. So I met with her, and it was there that I did a whole interview process, an assessment, all that stuff. And that is when I was both diagnosed officially with a borderline personality disorder, but also when they said, hey, we do think you would be a good candidate for DBT. What is DBT? Well, thanks for asking. So it's a lot of things, obviously. So my experience with DBT, it was a 6-month program, and you showed up twice a week. Once was group therapy, and once was with your therapist. And you would be given a different like homework worksheet assignment every week. And you would basically be given something to think about all week and see how you exist within the world and how those things apply to you. You would be doing a worksheet, you would come into group, you would talk about it, and then you would talk about it one-on-one with your therapist. That was my experience of DBT. I'm assuming that it's similar still, but again, it was 10 years ago, and it could be different state to state. I don't know, okay? I'm not an expert. And so it was a 6-month long process, but it was very much encouraged to do it a second time. So you basically start over from the beginning. It's basically you go through the workbook in 6 months, and then you go through the workbook again. And so I did it for the full year. And essentially at its core, again, DBT is a lot of things. But if I had to explain it at its very core, it is teaching you coping mechanisms to rework the way that you approach situations and the emotions that you feel towards them is going to be how I describe it. Okay. And I'm going to use that definition as kind of how I psychoanalyze the Amber crash out situation. So there's that. Put a pin in it. Boop. Amberlynn Reid. Now, if there's one thing that I know about Amber, it's that she is a hyperfixator. She gets very into things very quickly. And this might be a borderline personality disorder thing now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm the same way. But it could also just be a plethora of other mental health issues that I also share with her. But, whether it's a new weight loss program or a new hobby or whatever, she gets very fixated on it. She's very obsessed with it, and then eventually doesn't care about it anymore. And it very much seems like BPD right now is like her hyperfixation. She's been doing, at least what it seems like, a lot of research on it. I'm not saying that she is gaining a lot of knowledge from it, but it seems like she's been doing her work in trying to understand it. She, allegedly has gone and seen a therapist about it. She's getting the workbooks. She's a fangirl for DBT. And she's on vlogs now, teaching us about BPD because she's such an expert on it that she can go through it and explain it to us. Thank God we have Amber to explain BPD to us. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I also, when I discovered that I had this, it was something that I hyperfixated on and did a lot of research on, and was like, oh my gosh, I think this is me. So I would assume, especially if she was a fangirl of DBT, I would assume that she would have some general understanding of what BPD is and what too many acronyms, what borderline personality disorder is and what dialectical behavioral therapy does to help that. I would assume she'd have some baseline understanding of the definition that I just used of reworking the mind to reanalyze situations in our lives emotionally and regulating that. I would assume that she would have some understanding of that is what this therapy is supposed to do. So if I were in her situation and being very excited about this prospect of, ooh, these are things that I can now do to better myself, I would start, especially being with all these accusations coming from Beck now, I would say, oh my goodness, I'm recognizing that there's a lot of things here that I did in the past that align with what I've learned about borderline personality disorder. I'm seeing now that these are things that I did that were bad because of what I have. And now moving forward in life, I can now learn how to be better, which is something that she said. And that's why I'm so angry about this. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm rambling, but like it all matters. I have a point, I promise. So to me, what one would do in a live stream when taking accountability, I would be like, hey, I was a really bad person. I have learned that I now have this thing. These are the things that this diagnosis causes me to do. I am realizing that I did all of these things to Beck. And I never want to be that person again. I am so sorry for these horrible things that I did. I did not know at the time that I was doing these things, maybe. But now I see them and I am so sorry and I take accountability for them. And now I'm going to move forward. I have discovered this new thing. This is what it's going to help me do so that way I never do these things again. That's not what she did though. I mean, I think she thinks that's what she did, but that's not what she did. Anyways, so now one would think in the midst of all the backlash and all the emotions that she's feeling, if I were her, I would say, oh my goodness, now that I know these things about me and I know that I can't emotionally regulate these things correctly because I do not have the tools yet. I know that there are tools out there, but I don't have them yet. I need to get these tools now because I cannot handle this situation that I have now put myself in because of my borderline personality disorder. I need to get better now more than anything. This is the biggest wake-up call of all time. I need to disconnect. I need to get off of YouTube. I need to get off of social media. And I need to say, hey, I take accountability. I'm not a good person. And now that I know that I can change, I'm going to get that help. And that's not at all what she's doing. And it drives me absolutely up the wall. And it just makes me realize that she has no understanding of her diagnoses or if she does, she has no intention of getting any better because she wouldn't, having this much understanding of her issues, she would be going, okay, now is the time to change. I need this more than ever. Sorry if I just keep repeating myself, but that's how I'm getting a little emotional about this. She wants to be able to stand up for herself. She wants to be able to say, hey, I take accountability for these things, but I also want to stand up for myself. The best thing you can do, Amber, please somebody send this to her. The best thing you can do for yourself right now by advocating for yourself is to advocate for your mental health and get better. Because I promise you, that is the only thing that is going to help you right now. You are not equipped to handle this situation. And we can see this. You are spiraling. You are crashing out. You are making things worse. I don't know if y'all have seen, but apparently this is alleged because you never know. Like it could be photoshopped or whatever, but there was something leaked of somebody who was messaging Emily/Tommy and her being like, yeah, Amber's messaging me from all these different numbers, complaining about this thing. Like, girl, get out. Stop being in your ex's DMs. You are not equipped for this, homegirly. You are proving time and time again that you do not have any kind of ownership or handling of your issues that you claim that you are now going to get better at. That was the whole point of your taking accountability was, oh, that was in the past, but now I'm getting help for these things, so now I'm fine. No, you're not. No, you're not. The whole point of DBT and is to become essentially self-aware. There's this great thing that they teach you. It's called, we all have emotion mind, we all have reason mind. And neither one is a good place to fully live in. You need to have a little bit of both to come into wise mind. If you know, you know. Where my DBT people at, you know. Which, again, if she's done any research into DBT, she would know this concept. I'm not saying she'd be an expert at it and be able to get there, because, again, you need to go to therapy to be able to do that. But she would be familiar with the concept. Girl, it's time to get into wise mind. It's time to get there, okay? It's time to, like, leave your exes alone. Like, literally leave all your exes alone. They don't want to talk to you, okay? There's a reason that everybody's broken up with you and you have not broken up with any of them. They don't want to talk to you because you've been toxic. And it wasn't just with Beck, okay? It's been with everybody. Even your most recent partner is sprinkling that you were a problem and that the issues that you have were a problem. So girl, if you want to stand up for yourself by getting better. Okay? Go to therapy, get help. I know that, like, BPD seems like the scapegoat that you can now use as the excuse for everything. No, that's not how it works. If anything, it's worse that you now know that you have it and you're aware of what it is and that you're not getting better. You're worse now. You look worse, at least to me who has it. It makes me go, you can't, I gotta go to work. Okay. But just, like, in short, I guess, to sum this up, nothing Amber is saying makes any sense. And it's time for her to log off and get help. And I really, really hope she does, because the day that I learned about borderline personality disorder, the day that I understood myself and said, oh, this is why I do these things. This is why relationships haven't worked out in the past. This is why friendships have not worked out in the past. This is why I am miserable all the time. This is why I can't handle certain situations. Oh, there's a way to fix this so that I am not this person anymore. Girl, you gotta embrace that and go to it. Because I promise you, if you really, truly do that, and you have to be humble. You have to be humble. You have to say, I acknowledge that there's a serious problem with me and that it is fixable with these coping mechanisms that I can learn through this program. So go do that program. Honestly, I've said this in the past. I have a whole video on it. I would seriously consider going into inpatient care right now, because you are not equipped to be dealing with what's happening right now. I mean, I don't think anyone is really fully equipped to handle what is happening to her right now. And I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve it, because she's definitely dug her own grave here. But Amber, you could have prevented all of this by getting help sooner, and you didn't. But you can now. So go get help now, because I promise you, you are only going to spiral more. You're going to become more self-destructive. Now is the time to truly put yourself first, not in a narcissistic way, but in a, I need to get help to be better, so that way I do not continue to harm people and also harm yourself. And it's scary, but, like, it's time to do it. It's time to do it. And I guarantee everyone who hates you would be on your side to do this. This is what we all want you to do. And I know that then it feels like, oh, well, then everybody's right and everything they've ever said to me, then I have to say that I'm wrong. It's okay to say that you're wrong. You look like a hero when you admit that you're wrong, Amber. Take accountability and go to therapy. Love, Annie. Hope you're doing well.